ओम श्री परमात्मने नमः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता साधका संजीवनी 8th chapter Attaining the Supreme verses 23 to 28. In the 16th verse, Lord Krishna explained that all the worlds from the abode of Brahma downwards are subject to return, but on attaining him there is no rebirth. But he has not explained the time, path, departing when they don't return, and also the time, path, departing when they return. So he starts the topic. Verse 23. Yatra kale tva anavrittim avrittim chaiva yoginaha prayata yanti tam kalam vakshyami bhartarishbha. Now I shall tell you, O best of the Bhartas, the time when the yogis depart never to return, and also the time when they depart to return. Comment. Liberation from bondage in the mortal world is called Sadhya Mukti, quick salvation. That is, those who attain God by exclusive devotion attain the highest perfection. Those who have subtle desire at the time of death go to the abode of Brahma and then are liberated with him. This sort of salvation is called Krama Mukti, chain salvation. Those who go to the abode of Brahma to enjoy pleasures are subject to return. Those who have a disinclination for God and are entangled in attachment and pleasures depart to return because their discrimination is veiled. Their path is dark, namely, there is predominance of ignorance. Those whose aim has been to realize God, but at the time of death they have a little subtle desire, and so they, after enjoying the heavenly pleasures, come back. Now in the next verse, Lord Krishna describes the path of the yogis who depart never to return. Verse 24. Agnir Jyotir Aha Shuklaha Shanmasa Uttrayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Brahma Vedo Janaha. In the path in which are stationed deities presiding over effulgent fire, daylight, the bright fortnight, and the 6 months of the northward course of the sun, then going forth after death, the knowers of Brahma, having attained Brahmaloka along with Brahma, finally reach Brahma. Comment. In the bright path, first of all, there is the right of fire god. Fire gives light at night, and that light works for a short distance and for a short time, while the daylight works for a longer distance and a longer time. Bright fortnight is the night of means. The light of this bright fortnight remains for a very long distance and for many days in the sky. The northern path of the sun is of 6 months and is equal to a day of the gods. The light in the northern path remains for a very long distance and time. Those who pass along the bright path first go to the territory of fire god. Then the fire god hands them over to the god of day after they have crossed fire god's territory. Similarly, the god of day hands them over to the god of bright fortnight, and he hands them over to the god of the northward course of the sun, and he hands them over to the god of the abode of Brahma. Then with Brahma they are liberated and attain God. In the next verse, Lord Krishna describes the path of those who depart to return. Verse 25. Dhumo ratristatha Krishnaha Shanmasa Dakshinayinam Tatra Chandramasam Jyotiryogi Prapya Nivartate. In the path in which are stationed the gods presiding over smoke, night, the dark fortnight, and the 6 months of the southern passage of the sun, then going forth, the yogi after death obtains the lunar light and returns to the mortal world. Comment. In the dark path, the god of smoke hands over those who pass along the path to the god of night when they have crossed his territory. Similarly, the god of night hands them over to the god of dark fortnight, who hands them over to the god of the southern passage of the sun. He hands them over to the god of lunar light, that is, they attain the divine worlds such as heaven, etc. Then, after enjoying the pleasures as the fruit of their merits and virtues, they have to return. While returning from the dark path, the soul first comes to the sky, then to the clouds, through air. Through rain it enters the grain, then it enters the men when they eat food according to the fruit of its actions of the previous birth. From the man it goes to the woman and takes birth. Thus it follows the wheel of birth and death. Now a question arises why the Lord has called the people who perform actions for their fruit yogis. There can be several reasons. Number 1. The Lord in the Gita declares that those who are established in sattva, that is the quality of goodness, go to higher regions while others go to middle or lower regions. Here there is the description of those who go to the higher regions. Thus, being superior to those who go to the middle or lower regions, they have been called yogis. Number 2. They go to the higher worlds for enjoying heavenly pleasures after having renounced the mundane pleasures by self-control. They have been called yogis because they become equanimous whether they receive mundane pleasures or not. Number 3. Their aim has been to realize God, but at the time of death, they deviate from yoga because of their subtle desire for pleasures. So they go to the higher worlds, such as the abode of Brahma, etc. After living there for a long time, they are born in the house of pious and wealthy men. Thus, the devotees who deviate from yoga also go along the same dark path. So persons having an interested motive have been called yogis. An exceptional fact. Generally, people think that those who die in daytime, in bright fortnight, and in the 6 months of the northward course of the sun attain salvation, but those who die in night time, in dark fortnight, and in the 6 months of the southern passage of the sun don't attain salvation. But actually it is not so. This description has been given only for those who go to the higher regions. It does not apply to those who go to hells or take births in evil species. The fact is that beings go to higher or lower regions according to their actions, whether they die in the daytime or nighttime, bright fortnight or dark fortnight, or northward course of the sun or the southward course of the sun. The devotees who take refuge in the Lord attain Him whether they die in the daytime or nighttime, bright fortnight or dark fortnight, or northward course of the sun or the southward course of the sun. Now a doubt arises why Bhishma, a liberated soul, waited for the northward course of the sun in leaving the mortal body. The clarification is that Bhishma had not to go to the abode of God. He, being a god named Vasu, had to go to the world of the gods. There the doors remain closed at the time of the southward course of the sun. So if he went at that time, he would wait outside to enter his world. He had the power to die any time as he willed. So he thought it better to die and wait here, as he could behold Lord Krishna and have good company, which would be useful for the welfare of everyone. So he left the body at the time of the northward course of the sun. The next verse is the concluding verse of the topic of the two paths. Verse 26. Shukla Krishne gati hete jagtaha shashvate mate ekaya yatya navrittim anyaya vartate punha. These two paths, the bright and the dark, are considered to be the world's eternal paths. Proceeding by one, a man has not to return, while proceeding by the other, he returns. Comment. So long as men attach importance to the perishable objects of the world and have a desire for them, they can go to the lower regions even after reaching the higher ones. Similarly, being portions of the Lord, they can go to the higher regions. So a striver should ever be alert and cautious. He should never attach importance to the perishable things of the world and should never hate a person, because that person, being a portion of the Lord, may be inclined to him any time. The strivers proceeding by the bright path have not to return. They go to the abode of Brahma and attain emancipation with Brahma. But the persons proceeding by the dark path return. That is, follow the wheel of birth and death. Now Lord Krishna in the next verse tells the merits of knowing the two paths. Verse 27. Nate sriti partha janan yogi muhyati kaschana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavarjuna. Knowing these two paths, O Partha, no yogi is deluded. Therefore, O Arjuna, be established in yoga at all times. Comment. The strivers who don't attach importance to the perishable objects are the followers of bright path. But those persons who are engrossed in the world and whose aim is to hanker after prosperity and pleasures are the followers of the dark path. The people who by controlling their senses from the worldly pleasures perform actions such as oblation, penance and charity etc. in order to enjoy the heavenly pleasures are also in the dark, because they have to return from the higher regions and have to follow the wheel of birth and death. Thus, a striver, by knowing the secret of the two paths, becomes a yogi. That is, he performs actions without having any desire for the fruit of actions, because he transcends the pleasures of this world as well as of the next one. Thus, he is not deluded. One who is determined that he has to realize God remains equanimous in favorable and unfavorable circumstances and incidents, etc. Therefore, Lord Krishna orders Arjuna to be established in yoga in the form of equanimity. That is, he, without being affected by the favorable and the unfavorable circumstances, should make their right use. In favorable circumstances, he should serve the world, and in unfavorable circumstances, he should renounce the desire for favorable circumstances. Now, Lord Krishna gives the merit of becoming a yogi. Verse 28. Vedeshu yaggeshu tapahassu cheva dhaneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam ateti tat sarvam edam viditva yogi param sthanam upeti chadyam. The yogi who knows this secret transcends the fruits of meritorious deeds attached to the study of the Vedas, performance of sacrifices, austerities and charities, and attains the supreme primeval abode. Comment. The fruit of performing the meritorious acts such as austerities, sacrifices, penances, charities and pilgrimages etc. is perishable, because all those acts have a beginning and an end. So how can their fruit be imperishable? The man, soul, because of his ignorance, gets entangled in the perishable things and persons etc., though he is an eternal portion of the Lord. Thus, the striver who knows the secret of the bright and the dark paths, described from the 23rd verse to the 26th verse, transcends the fruit of the meritorious deeds of the performance of sacrifices, austerities and charities etc., because he comes to know that all the worlds of pleasures from the abode of Brahma downwards are subject to return, but on attaining the Lord there is no rebirth. He also knows that he is a fragment of the Lord, and so without getting entangled in the perishable and kaleidoscopic things and pleasures, he can take refuge in him. The man who is engrossed in pleasures and prosperity can't know the supreme primeval abode. namely God. He himself is responsible for this ignorance because of his disinclination for God. He is able to wipe out this ignorance and error. If he renounces the desire for the sensual pleasure, he can know the supreme primal abode, namely the Lord. So, a striver should make the best possible efforts to attain the goal of human life by renouncing the desire for perishable pleasures. Om Tat Sat. All glories to Sri Partha Sarthi, Lord Shri Krishna.